Welcome back to MyJewelryBench.com. It's Pete from My Jewelry Bench. I want to talk to you a little bit about Mother's Day. It's coming up, and who doesn't hate their mother? Except maybe my two sisters. And we've got some ideas for jewelry things that could help mom out. This is going to be part one of a several part series. I'm going to show you how to make these little pendants, and they're great because you can add as many as you want. If they have one child that they want to do, you can just make one of these pendants. If they have 10 kids, you can make 10 of them. You can stagger them, keep them all the same length. I'm going to show you how to make these and customize them today and get them ready for 3D printing. Let's get started. Okay guys, so let's get started. First we're going to do is we're going to delete this cube, the obligatory cube that comes with Blender. Okay, next thing I want to do is come up with what I know is a typical thing that my customers would always ask for. They wanted like maybe 4mm gemstones for their pendant. So in this example, we're going to stick with just the 3 stones, and it'll be son, daughter, mother. We'll just go that route. And I'm going to show you basically how to do that. So the first child is, let's say, April, which would be a diamond. And the mother, let's say, is September, so that'd be a sapphire. And July, we'll do a ruby. So first thing I want to do is create the stones. And I'm going to come up here and look at this as straight down. I'm going to hit the 7 key on my keyboard. And while I'm at it, let's just go turn on screencast keys. Okay, so when my screencast keys are on, press something, it'll show up here in the sidebar. I'm going to actually make that a little bit bigger so that you guys can see it. And I'll leave it over there. So now we have spacebar, A, okay, great. Okay, so I'm looking at this straight down using the 7 key on my numeric keyboard, or you can use the tilde key and go to a top view. Okay, so with that done, let's go and add our stones. I want to make 3 hanging pendants to go on a chain, and what we're going to do now is just add the 4mm stone. So I'm going to go over to Jewelcraft, but you can use, you can make your own stone or however you want to do it. We're going to change that to 4.0 millimeters, and the first one we're going to add in is a diamond. So round and okay. So there's our first stone, and now we're going to add in another one. It's going to be a sapphire, so I'll hit add gem. We're going to pick sapphire, which is right there. Press OK. And now I'm going to move that over here. And the last one we're going to do is add in a ruby. I'm going to come over here, go down to ruby, and then hit OK. So there's our 3 stones. Now, mom is a sapphire. We're going to put her in the middle. So I'm going to take that one over here. I'm going to bring this over to the middle. Hit Shift S and selection to cursor. There we go. And I will just move this one over like that. Now, mom is obviously our mother, and let's say the girl is a ruby, so we're going to move her up here. She's a little older than the boy. The boy is a diamond. We're going to move him up a little shorter because he's younger. So I'm just trying to get a little bit of an offset to work with. Next thing I want to do is make the heads for these, and that's pretty simple. So if you do have my library of models, you can go over to Blender Gems, wherever that is. We'll use the Simple Asset Manager, and you can come over to heads. These are round stones, so I'm going to select the round library, and then you can click on any of these to add them. If you don't have this, let's just make a simple round stone head, and we'll use a let's say a cup head. So to make a cup head, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move these stones to our main scene just to keep everything organized. Right there. We're going to close up our collection. So we're working in the main scene. So what I want to do now is hide these 3. I'm going to hit the little eyeball here. 1, 2, 3. We're going to hide those. And let's make a cup. So to do that, I hit Shift A, and I'm going to go to Add Mesh and UV Sphere. Going to come over to the lower left corner, and under UV Sphere, I'm going to drop this up to, I'm going to bring this up to just to give us some better definition, 48 and 48. And of course we want the radius to be, let's say 4.6 millimeters. There we go. So now that's going to encompass our stone. So that's part 1 done. Now I need to make a cutout of this. So I'm going to duplicate this, Shift D, press Enter. I'm going to move this up using the little Z move tool right like that. I'm going to look at this from the side view, pressing the 1 key. I'm going to hit Shift A. I'm going to add in a cube, and I'm going to bring that cube up. We're going to size that to about here. And this is the cup that I want to use to hold our stone. So I'm going to drop that to about like that. So it's half, just like so. I'm going to hold down the cube, or with the cube selected, I'm going to hold the Shift key down, select our cup. And I'm going to use the Boolean tool. So I've got Booltron installed. You can go do a search for that, or you can use the Boolean tool in Blender 2.9, 2.8. And we'll do a difference, and you see it cuts our original cube in half. Now I'm going to size this down a little bit, and we're going to make that about like so. I'm going to bring this down into our cup that we want to use. I'm going to turn on invisible mode. We look at that from the side, and you can see what I've got here is the insert into that, and that looks pretty good. So with the cutout selected, I'm going to hold the cup, or hold the Shift key down, select the cup, and do a difference. Now you can see that we've got a nice hollow place for our stone. So if I go and pull in our stones, you can see it's a little bit bigger than we need, so let's just make this small. And we'll size that down to about here, like so, and bring that up, just like that. And if we look at that from the side view, you can see the cutlet is well within the center of our circle here. And I can just lower that a little bit, just like so if I want, and just make that a little bit smaller, just like that. That looks good. Okay, I've got that done. I'm going to leave it like that for now. We're going to actually hide this sapphire one more time. And I want to give this some detail because I want it open. And I really want it open just along the x-axis. So I'm going to hit Shift A, and I'm going to add in a mesh, and we're going to add in a cylinder. And I'm going to give this, we'll just do 48 divisions. You can add as many as you like. I'm going to rotate that cylinder around the y-axis 90 degrees. So RY 90. And then we will S to size it along the y, actually along the x-axis, so S, X, and then size it like so. And there's my opening. So with that selected, I'm going to hold the Shift key down and select the cup, and then do a difference. Okay, so there is our cup for the first stone. Now I'm going to turn off see-through so that we are looking at it as a solid. And now what I want to do is bring in our stone so we can just see how it looks. That looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. Okay, so the next thing I need to do is duplicate this so that it matches the other one. So let's just select our cup. We're going to change this from sphere to cup head and press enter. And now I want to duplicate that, and I'm going to hit Shift D and press enter. Go to my view, my top view, and then G. We're going to move this over to here. And I'm sorry I don't have that in view, but that's holding up the first or the second stone. I'm going to Shift D again, then G, and I'm going to move that copy over to here, just like so. So there is our 3 stones, kind of how we want them aligned, and that works pretty good. Now, how I used to do this when I made these is I would basically just order these parts from Rio Grande or Stellar or Quality Gold, any supplier that you use or you're comfortable with, but you can cast them if you want. And that's going to be covered in part 2 of this, which actually will come at the second half of this video, because I want to show you some differences. I'm just showing you the basics that I used to do. And I typically would take a piece of gold wire or silver wire, however I was making this, and I had so to cast this in 3D, we're just going to come over and add in another cylinder, and it's 48. We're going to hit RX 90 and rotate along the 90, and I'm going to bring that up to here. We're going to hit S, Y, and we're going to make that about yay long. And then I want this to be, let's see, size, Shift X, and we're just going to make that a little narrower, just like so. S, X, still want that to be round, and then S, Y, and about like so. I'm going to bring this down a little bit like that, and into here. Okay, so almost perfect. I just want to move that in a little bit more, just like that. And don't worry if your model is protruding into your cup, because you're going to actually cut this out when you set the stone anyway, so consider that option. We could always remodel this if we want, but it's not necessary. Okay, I'm going to unhide that stone, so we're still working with it. And this is about the length that I want for the mom's stone pendant. Now, I would typically make a small ring up here to fit on a chain, and of course we have to compensate for the end cap of the chain or the claw or whatever the clasp is going to be. And then I like to have those spaced long enough so that these pendants don't bunch together. So here's how I would do it. I would take some tubing, and it's pretty simple. I just take in Blender to design this. I'll hit Shift A. We're going to add in a new cylinder, and I'm going to bring this up like so. And we're at 48, I believe, on that. So we're just going to size that up a little bit more. Oh, I'm going to hit Shift D and press Enter to make a duplicate, and this is going to be our cutout. SZ, we're going to make that taller. I'm going to size that down to about like here. That looks pretty good. And I'm going to, with the cutout selected, I'm going to hold the Shift key down, select the first cylinder we made, and then do a difference so we've hollowed it out. With that hollowed out, now I can rotate this, RY 90, and now I can move this where I want it. And put that right up here like so. And if we look at this from the side view, we want to move this down right like that. Okay, that looks pretty good, and judging by I would typically sell these with like a 1mm box chain or I don't like to use rope chains because rope chains, when they go through these, kind of act like a saw blade and cut. So like a wheat chain or a box chain, those are good options, especially wheat because they're triple link and they're soft and polished and they don't act like a saw blade as the pendant slides back and forth. Okay, so now that's done. Let's just take these two pieces. We're going to hold the Shift key down, select one and the other. I'm going to hit Shift D to duplicate those, press Enter, come back at the top view, and I'm going to go mark this right there. And now I need to shorten this piece here, so SY, and then we're going to bring that in. I'm going to move that up about like so. We're going to make that a little smaller. And that looks pretty good, just like so. And now I will grab this again. I'm going to hold the Shift key down, grab that one, hit Shift, duplicate, then G, and I'm going to move that over to here. I'll hit GX so that we're aligned right. That looks good. And we need to make this one a little longer, so I'll put this in the middle. S, Y, and then I'll make that a little longer. I'm going to move that up. That looks really good. Now I'm just going to grab this piece here, and I'm going to move that a little closer so that you can get an idea of what these would look like once they're done. Okay, so does that help kind of with the layout of this? Well, let's just do a quick render so you can see what they'd look like in real life. And okay, so here's what they would look like all rendered out, typically what they look like in real life. And, you know, I've done hundreds of these things. So I've made them in silver, I've made them in yellow gold, I've made them in white gold, even did one set in platinum. And these things are nice because they can grow. So let's say you have a young couple, maybe in their mid-late 20s, and they already have one or two children, and they plan on having a couple more. You've got room to grow and add to a chain. So that's kind of a fun thing to do. And these are pretty generic. You can make these with, you know, basically some round wire, some heads that you can buy on, you know, from a jewelry supply house, and get these done relatively quickly. And for Mother's Day, I knock these things out like they were candy. So that's always a good option. And now we're going to go ahead and do some customizing to this. Okay, so that's the easy way of doing it. And like I said, you can make these in, you know, any way you want, using any kind of heads you want. You can kind of go ahead and do almost any design style, but this is a really good way to come up with a nice pendant idea for Mother's Day. Now, there's a really good way of designing in Blender, and that is that we can customize everything, 3D print it and cast it and do all that great stuff with it. So now I want to make these a little bit nicer and a little more personalized. So coming up with a personalized design is very simple. We're going to get rid of these three bars here, these three little round cylinders. I'm going to hit X and delete those. Okay, and what I want to do is make something that's more oblong but not quite square. So what I'm going to do is model up a new a new bar to go in there. So how I'm going to do that is pretty simple. First, we'll just take and hide all these models. You can put them in one group and then hide them all together. I'm just going to hide them individually. Okay, so now I've got this blank slate. I'm going to hit Shift A. I'm going to add a mesh. I'm going to add in a cylinder. And I'm going to rotate that along the x-axis, RX90, so that's like that. Oh, you know what? Let's delete that. Shift A. We're going to add in a new cylinder. So mesh, cylinder, and I'm going to bump this up to, let's say, 80. So that we get a little more definition. I'm going to rotate that along the x-axis, RX90, and I am going to size that, SY, and I'm going to make that a little bit longer, just about like so. And now I want to do this. I want to hit Tab to go into edit mode. We're going to add in a loop cut, so I'm going to hit Control R to add in a loop cut, and I will press the mouse button, the left mouse button once, and then I'm going to move this over to the side just like that. We're going to do this one more time, Control R, and I'm going to move that over to this end and then put that there. That looks good so far. Hit A to select all. I'm going to hit Shift Z so I can size this along the Z axis and just make it like so. That looks good. I'm pretty happy with that. And I want to add in some dimensions to this. So I'm going to add in a subsurf modifier. Come over to our modifiers tab, add in a subdivision surface, and we're going to bump that up to 2. That doesn't look terrible, but I'm not happy with that. Let's get rid of that. I think I'll just stick with the one I like. I like the remesh, and I'm going to hit smooth, and I'm going to bump that up to 7. That looks good. And I'm going to apply that. Okay, so there is our new model, and you can see it's all remeshed. I've got lots of nice little cubes in there. Okay, so I need 3 of these because we need to add 3 of these for the 3 pendants. So the reason I'm doing an oblong like this is because what I want to do is add in names to these, and that's typically because, you know, some people with personalized jewelry, especially for Mom's Day or Mother's Day, you're going to add in maybe the mom's name and their 2 kids, or maybe if they have 3 kids or 5 kids, however many of these you're going to do. And that's really where it becomes creative, because you can do 1, you can do 10, however many you want. So in this particular case, I've got 3, and we're going to stick with the mom's name. We're going to stick with the 2 kids' name, and let's say mom is going to be named Marcia, and the 2 kids, Cindy and Bobby. And for those of you who get that reference, ha ha ha, it's I won't bother telling you what it is. You can leave that in the comments below if you know what the answer is. So let's start by adding some text. So we're going to call this post. So that's renamed, and I'm going to hide that. Okay, now I want to add in a text object. So we're going to hit Shift A. We're going to come down to text, and there is our text. We're going to come over and do edit mode so we can type in the new name, and we're going to do Marcia, and hit Tab to go into object mode. And now I want to give this some dimensions. So I'm going to come over to our text modifier here, our text tab. I'm going to come over to geometry, and I am going to extrude that up. So we're giving that some dimensions. Let me just zoom in here so you can see what I'm doing. And if I extrude that a little bit more like so, and if you want to give it some depth or bevel, you can kind of give that a little more of a design or style, just like that. That looks pretty good. Now with that done, I also want to do a couple more things to it. I want to convert this to an object or a mesh. So we're going to come over to convert to mesh. I'm also going to put the cursor in the center. So Shift S, and we're going to say, actually, no, we're going to right click on this, go to object, set origin, and I'm going to do center of mass. Then I'll hit Shift S, and we'll put this in the middle of the screen, just like that. Okay, so now if you remember in my previous examples, one thing about working with text that's been converted to an object, we can't use this as a good cutout sometimes. Sometimes you can. In this case, what I want to do is I want to select our text, and I'm going to convert that to, or I'm going to actually apply a modifier to that. Again, we're going to use the remesh modifier. So I'm going to come down here to remesh. I am also going to check on smooth, And remove disconnected, I'm going to uncheck that so that we have all our letters disconnected. And I'm going to bump this up to, let's say, 8. That looks good. And now that I've got that done, I'll hit apply, and that looks perfect. Okay, so I've got that set. Let's unhide our post. There's our post. Let's take our text. Let's move this up a little bit so it's above our post. I'm going to rotate that RZ90 so that we're rotated just like that. And I'm going to size this just up a little bit like so. I like the way that looks. And just to make sure that I get everything lined up and perfect, let's just bring in our other models so that we know what we're working with. So I've got everything here. I'm going to select the text, hold the shift key down, select this new post, and I am going to move those up about like so. And I'm going to size this up a little larger, about like that. I'm going to move this up, size along the y-axis so that it fits between both. And I've got that like that. Okay, I'm happy with that so far. I need to make some modifications to this. I want to lower this to about here, move this in. Okay, that's good. So again, we'll look at that from the top down. I'm going to take our nameplate and I'm going to move that over to the middle of this. That looks about good, right about there. I also want to make this a little bit bigger, so I'm going to hit size. I'm going to make that a little larger. Make sure that we're still fitting within this post, and we are. Now I'm going to bring this down into our post right here, and that looks good like that. I'm going to bring that down just a little bit more. Oops, wrong one. Text we want to bring down a little bit more, just about like so. I'm going to make that a little bit bigger, about like that. And once I get it where I want it, perfect, just like so, I am going to hold the, with the text selected, hold the shift key down, select our new post, and now I'm going to do a difference on the Boolean modifiers, and that should cut the name into our new mesh for our post. So there you can see we have a name on that. Now that's done. We want to duplicate that for the other two. So I am not going to walk you through that since I just did, but I'm going to go ahead and model those out real quickly. Okay, so here we've got all three pendants modified, and that looks pretty good. Now, there's one thing I can do to make this a little bit better, just for modeling purposes, and that would be to just cut out, I'm going to select these two objects here, and let's see, which one is this? This is the ruby. We're going to hide that. We're going to hide this cup, and right there. Okay, so if I want to make the end of this a little bit rounder so that it can be modeled into our head a little bit better, I can pretty much just do Shift A, add a mesh, a new cylinder, and then 7. We're going to move this G over to here. S, I'm going to size this up so that it's about the size of our head. And I'm just going to come in here. I'm going to hold that down. I'm going to hold the drop down here. I'm going to go do a difference, and you can see that should cut out a circle in there. And now when we unhide our gemstone and our new head, we have a little bit better fit. If I look at this from the top down, I can kind of just move that over a little bit and SY, just make that a little bit better so that it cups around that particular one. And that looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. Let's take a look at this and what it would look like after it was made. So I'll do a quick render of this so you can see what it looks like. Okay, so here you see after it's rendered what it would look like, and that's just the basic design. Now the beauty part of this is because you're using Blender and you're going to use your 3D printer, you can design just about any kind of thing you want. So here you can see I've used a couple different head options, and I'm still using the round stones, but a little bit different style head. And then I'll move on to possibly adding some antiquing inside or some enamel inside the lettering, and that would just allow those to stand out or pop out a little bit more. And of course we can always use different stones and different heads. So guys, go out there and play, and if you come up with some really great designs, make sure you go to our Facebook page. Just do a search for My Jewelry Bench on Facebook, and make sure you go over to the groups and add yourself into the group and post your pictures and share with us all the fun creations that you make. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a great day, and hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and if you are not a subscriber, consider subscribing. Take care.